get started. Hey, one more minute. Thank you. I'd like to bring the meeting into order. Let's see. Mr. Angel, would you please lead us in the pledge?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Opening comments, Superintendent Troxclair.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Good evening. As of Monday, all students in grades K through 12 have returned to daily in-person learning. The transition was smooth, and we are excited to have all of our students back on campus. Kindergarten registration will open on Friday, March 5th, and will continue throughout this summer. Children who are 5 years old, on or before September 30th, 2021, and reside in Lafayette Parish may register online by visiting the Lafayette Parish School website. Please note that all students, including kindergartners, will be attending school on Friday, March 5th due to registration occurring in an online format. The Magnet Academy's online application will reopen tomorrow, Thursday, March 5th at 10 o'clock a.m. to fill available seats. The second round of applications will be filled on a first-come, first-served basis. Please visit LafayetteChoice.com to apply. This past Saturday, 101 teachers in grades K through 2 participated in a professional development workshop titled Writing Across the Curriculum. The teachers were engaged and discussed grade-level writing expectations with the emphasis on quality before quantity in writing. I continue to be inspired by our educators who work to improve for students. District Administration is pleased to announce the second cohort of 15 aspiring leaders has been selected to the LPSS Leadership Institute. To be accepted, participants must have completed or are currently seeking a master's degree in educational leadership. Congratulations to these future leaders as they begin their mentorship and leadership training journey. The following students were named finalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program: Lucian Schoolmaster from Early College Academy, and Patrick Chu, Oliver Craddock, Mark Gain, Seth Moe, Wesley Meir, Anna Montgomery, and Hamoud Karishi from Lafayette High School. These 8 seniors were selected based on their academic achievements as well as their performance on the PSAT, which is the qualifying test for the National Merit Scholarship Program. Each of these students have a 4.0 or higher GPA and will be eligible for many prestigious scholarships which are often offered by colleges to national merit finalists. 2 of these Lafayette High School students, seniors Patrick Chu and Oliver Craddock, have also been named candidates in the 2021 U.S. Presidential Scholars Program. If selected as a finalist, they will receive a trip to Washington, D.C., where they participate in numerous events and activities, including the presentation of a U.S. Presidential Scholars Medallion. Congratulations to all of these students on their academic achievements. I would like to recognize the following students who won the state wrestling championships this past weekend at the LHSAA State Wrestling Tournament. From Southside High School, sophomore Landon Rayo at 106 pounds was voted Most Outstanding Wrestler, MVP of Division I. At Karen Crow High School, we have 2 seniors earning this distinction, Tyrick Clay at 132 pounds and Kendrell Williams at 195 pounds. This was the second time that these young men earned the title of state champion in their respective divisions. Congratulations to these student athletes. In closing, I would like to congratulate District 9 Board Member and former Superintendent Dr. Donald Aguillard for being selected to the Louisiana 4-H Hall of Fame. Previously, Dr. Aguillard was recognized by 4-H as their Superintendent of Schools Award recipient. Congratulations, Dr. Aguillard. Madam President, this concludes my opening statements.
Thank you, Ms. Trosclair. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move to litigation. We have 2 items, items 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1 is discussion and or action concerning pending litigation in the matter of Pat Cooper versus Lafayette Parish School Board. Suit number 2014-5941, Division L, 15th Judicial District Court, Parish of Lafayette, State of Louisiana. Item 2.2, discussion and or action pending litigation in the matter of Stacey Chaisson versus Lafayette Parish School, docket number 20-03718, District 04, Office of Workers' Compensation, State of Louisiana. I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Madam President, I move that the board go into executive session to discuss pending litigation in the matter of Pat Cooper versus Lafayette Parish School Board and Stacey Chaisson versus Lafayette Parish School Board.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Centeni and a second from Mr. Lachele. All in favor? I'd like to entertain a motion to go back into regular session. Aguilar? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Madam President, I move that the board accept the advice of counsel in the matter of Stacey Chaisson versus the Lafayette Parish School Board.
Okay. We have a motion by Mrs. Santani and a second by Mr. Lachele to accept the recommendation of counsel. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. We did a voice vote. Okay, we're going to move to item number 3, information items. Item 3.1, donation of books in elementary school libraries by Fleur-de-Lis, Republican Women. Mr. Santani?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll recognize Carol Ross and Donna Pelche of the Fleur-de-Lis Republican Women. Ms. Ross, a week or so ago, contacted me with a wonderful idea to donate some books to each one of our elementary school libraries. And so I've invited them to the meeting to present what their idea is and what their plan is.
Well, you know who I am, so Justin already introduced me, but you know I have a habit of thinking out loud sometimes, and it just so happened that Justin was on the other end of that telephone line, and I said, what do you think about this idea? And he said, oh, I think it's a great idea. And I said, I want to assure everybody that it is not a partisan idea. It's just the Fleur-de-Lis Republican Women are helping us to collect the funds, and every penny will go toward supplying these Rush Revere books to every elementary school library in the parish. We'll start with the elementary schools. Eventually we'd like to get to the middle schools as well. And if you've read anything about the books, you know that they've won numerous awards. New York Times best-selling series, Children's Choice Awards, Accelerated Reader Program, everything you can talk about, Scholastic Magazine. They've won so many, so much recognition because they really do, in a very clever way, and get kids who are, they think history is boring. A lot of adults think history is boring too. But these books make it come alive by using special devices, a talking horse, wisecracking talking horse. If you read any of the reviews, the website rushrevere.com has so much of the information on there. There are teaching guides. There are all sorts of aids to teachers and to the kids to get the benefit of these books. I've passed around a flyer to show you, just to show you the kinds of things. It's Rush Revere and the Brave Pilgrims, and the books are very high quality. So we are researching and getting the best price that we can. Every dime that we collect will go towards supplying the books. As I said, our goal is to supply, and we will supply, every elementary school. And this is a nonpartisan, believe me, it is a nonpartisan project. We want everybody in the community to get involved in this and to really have a new appreciation for the history of our country and hopefully bring that to the kids. Donna Pelche here, she's the president of the Fleur-de-Lis Republican Women. We'll begin promoting it on my show tomorrow, and I really appreciate the time that you all are giving us this evening to talk to the folks about it. Donna?
Thank you for having us this evening. We just want to try to get these books into the schools and make them available to the children. And it's, like she says, it's nonpartisan. It doesn't make any difference. We want them in every elementary school in the parish. And, hopefully if we can get enough donations in, we'll be able to go into other parishes or go into the middle schools and then hopefully maybe go into the high schools. The books are incredible. They really are. I was amazed. And I think all of you will be very impressed if you looked at any of the books and actually opened them up and saw the quality, the quality of the books and all. We've got them here if you want to look at. Anybody wants to take a look at them, but you can.
I believe Justin Santani just happens to have a little presentation that he wants to make.
I do. What I was going to say was of interest to my children and most of the children in our school system is I looked it up on the Lafayette Public Library's website. These are worth 8 AR points for everyone. So you read them, you take a test, you get credit towards your AR goal. And I do want to thank you ladies for doing it, your organization. And I wanted to be the first to make a donation, if you don't mind. I'm gonna give you a rack rate on and not wholesale price that you guys are looking for. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
We do want to encourage the entire community to get involved in this project. It really, I think, would be something really great for all the kids. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Broussard?
Ladies.
Put your mic
Ladies.
on.
I would not be me if I wouldn't make a comment on this. I'm going to reserve judgment until I read the book knowing Rush Limbaugh, what Rush Limbaugh stands for, the racist thing that he preaches in America that he lives in, different from mine. I need to say this. I'm not in favor of putting the books in the library for my grandkids to read until certain groups of people has reviewed the book and make sure that we are included in that history that he writes about.
I think your person has reviewed them. Whoever does the reviews for the school system has reviewed them. Yeah.
This the same group from the water cooler that agrees with it may not be agreeable to every person who educates. And I'm fully aware that some teachers are teaching some parts of the book, but I don't know if anything in the book reflects the success of what we have went through throughout what's so-called America.
Mr. Broussard, I appreciate your comments. We're trying to keep this nonpartisan. These books have been reviewed by many people, and hopefully we can allay your fears.
Mr. Lachele?
If I could, Ms. Ross, through Mr. Centani, I'll be getting you a donation.
Thank you.
I wish
so
I'd have
much.
known tonight that we could have given a donation, but through Mr.
Thank
Centani, or he can tell me how to get in touch with you, I will be
Well,
donating.
as I said, the Fleur-de-Lis Republican women are making their a P.O. box. Actually, it's going to be a separate account, a totally separate account, and I believe it's 81602. 81602, and the zip is 70598. But we'll be promoting that, and they'll be putting it on their Facebook page, the FDL Republican Women. So thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Mr. LeBeau?
Mr. Broussard, I've read every single book with my children, and I feel like you would be in support. It is pure history, but history made fun, and not in a way that I think has any political spin on it. It's just an easy way for kids to learn history. And I was apprehensive too, and I understand your feelings, but we actually did donate our copies to Ernest Gallette, their library. But I can tell you, even my 7th grader benefited greatly. That's the year they learned American history at Alamo, and she benefited extremely from reading those books and being able to really have that history come alive. So I just would encourage you to keep an open mind and read the books. I enjoyed them as an adult. They're wonderful books to read.
I'm keeping an open mind, but knowing the racist rhetoric that he preaches, it is written in the book, and I guess it's desire read. I mean, what history do you believe? The history that he preaches. I'm not saying that he wrote in the book. The histories that he preaches, or history the way it should be told.
And just as a side note, Bo Snerdley is actually African American, his number 2. So I would just keep an open mind about the books. They're absolutely not in any way a political spin. It's more of just a history come alive for children. Thank you.
Okay, our next item 3.2, Employee Services, Personnel Changes for March 3rd, 2021. From what I understand, we do not have any new personnel changes. So we'll move over to item 3.3, Facilities, Monthly Facilities Updates. Mr. Guidry and Mr. Borderlaw.
Good evening, members of the board. Kyle Bordlawn, Director of Planning and Facilities. The monthly facilities update is in your packet. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those at this time.
Okay, no one has any questions? Or do you need a minute? Mr. Centani?
Mr. Bordelon, we have experienced over the past few years some drainage issues on the backside of the Edgar Martin property. I know there's some disagreement or different opinions on what the responsibility is, or what feature of the neighborhood is responsible, whether it's the Edgar Martin property or whether it's the coulee that runs through the neighborhood. Do you know the area I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Did we build any kind of drainage mitigation into the Edgar Martin project that's ongoing right now to try to help on that side of the campus near the houses?
Yes, we did, as it affects the new wing addition. There will be a retention area, kind of behind the gymnasium area. So that's gonna take care of that water, from the new wing that's being added and that general vicinity.
And that was a part of the LCG permitting process?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Lachele?
Mr. Bordelon, how we coming along on Scott Middle?
Mr. Lachele, it's coming along.
It's coming along?
It's approaching completion.
Okay.
Not quite there yet, but it's approaching completion.
You think right around Easter we'll be serving lunch? After Easter, pretty much?
I don't wanna go out on a limb and say one way or the other.
Okay, 'cause we're planning, a bunch of us are planning, if policy allows, with the, COVID-19 restrictions, so forth and so on, of elected officials from Scott and so forth, and any board member of having lunch with the kids, hopefully this school year, if it's allowed. If not, we'll do it next year. So I haven't had time to pass by, but good to hear that we're getting closer.
Yes, sir. I mean, we're pushing, but there's only so much we can do. It's all up to the contractor to finish.
Thank you. Let me know if there's anything I can do.
Ms. Mason?
Thank you. Mr. Bordelon, where are we in the process for removing the Butler buildings at Woodvale Elementary and LJ Alamo? I think the last time we had talked, we were in like the third round. I just wanted to update if there's been a change in plans or
No,
what the issue is.
I'm still trying to juggle all the different priorities. I've got somebody going out to do some verification on building numbers to make sure that when we put the documents out for bidding, that we have the correct numbers in there. I have spoken to someone with St. Landry Parish in the last couple of weeks. They're interested potentially in purchasing anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe 5 buildings from us. And as soon as I get verification on that, we'll work on an intergovernmental agreement, kind of like we did with Vermilion Parish a while back. And all at the same time, whatever's left, we'll put that out for bids.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bordelon. Okay, item 3.4, list of bids approved to be advertised by the superintendent. Mr. Guidry, Ms. Francis.
Yes, this is a monthly information item with the 3 bids listed in the public content that we're advertised for.
Okay. Anyone has any questions? Okay, so we'll move on to item 3.5. List of purchases made pursuant to the federal and state emergency declaration provisions. Mr. Guidry, Ms. Francis.
Another monthly information report regarding such purchases. There were no COVID-19 purchases in the month of February, meeting the criteria for this report.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Guidry. So we're going to move on to our consent agenda. I'll read each agenda items you would like pulled, please do so. Items that will not be pulled, we will vote on in a consent agenda. So item 4.1, discussion and or action concerning approval of the assignment of 2 mechanical engineering firms to the 2 school kitchens air conditioning projects.
Pull that, please.
Item 2.4, academics discussion and or action concerning a revision to the 2020-2021 salary schedule booklet. 4.3, child nutrition services discussion and or action concerning resolution 03211999 National School Breakfast Week and National Nutrition Month.
Pull that, please.
Item 4.4, discussion and or action concerning insurance department staffing changes.
Pull that, please.
Item 4.5, discussion and or action concerning the Title I academic behavior coordinator job description and new academic behavior coordinator job description. Item 4.6, discussion and or action concerning approval of quote for Rue de Billier property fence project. Item 4.7, discussion and or action concerning approval of quotes for Burke Elementary parent drop-off driveway. 4.8, discussion and or action concerning an extension to the spending period of USDA funds. 4.9, discussion and or action concerning the sales tax collection report for January 2021. 4.10, discussion and or action concerning the grant fund summary for February 2021. 4.11, discussion and or action concerning budget to actual reports for February 2021. 4.12, discussion and or action concerning approval of communications license agreement with Cox Business Land Only, Section 16, Ambassador Caffrey Ridge Road. 4.13, discussion and or action concerning approval of bid award forklift child nutrition services, bid 31-21. Item 4.14, discussion or action concerning the annual external audit services. 4.15, discussion or action concerning the 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR. 4.16, discussion or action concerning the preliminary small capital project selection process, narrative for architects and engineers. 4.17, okay. 1.6 would be Mr. Ogel. Okay. 4.17, discussion and or action concerning the preliminary and small capital project selection process, request for qualifications and statement of qualifications for architects and engineers. Okay. 4.18, discussion and or action concerning proposal recommendation and award casualty and property insurance brokerage services, RFP-27-21. 4.19, discussion and or action concerning general fund budget revision increase, Karen Crow, fire damage. Item 4.20, discussion and or action concerning the minutes of February 3rd, February 10th, and February 23rd, 2021 minutes.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve all consent agenda items not pulled.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Lachele and a second by Mr. Centeni. Do I have any comments from the public? Any comments from the board? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Nine for, none against.
Okay, the first item pull is item 4.1, discussion and or action for approval of the assignment of the 2 mechanical engineering firms to the 2 school kitchen and air conditioning projects.
Madam Chairman, I move that the board approves the assignment of the mechanical engineering services contracts to ADG Engineering for the Phase 1 school kitchens, Acadiana High, Carencro Middle, Carencro High, Como High School, Drexel, Falk, Myrtle, and Woodvale Elementary, and to M&E Consulting for the Phase 2 school kitchens, Broadmoor, Broussard Middle, Evangeline, Judy's Middle, Lafayette High, Middlebrook, Ridge, and Truman projects.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Aguilar and a second by Mr. Angel. Do we have any comments from the public? Any comments from the board? Mr. Lachele?
Dr. Aguilar, I understand the process of assignment of architects and engineers. I happen to have done it myself for Acadiana High in the field house and had the basic justification for it, timeline being one, experience being another. What is your thinking of, as we're working on the process to actually distribute projects, what is your thinking in the using the assignment process of giving 16 projects to 2 engineering firms, and I guess basically why these 2, and how many would we have had, you know, competing? I understand the sense of urgency, I do, but I just kind of want to know, we're trying to rework the system, and like I said, I've used the assignment process for myself, just the very last meeting, and that project is already off and running, which is the reason I did it, is to get finished for August 1st, 2022. But this seems like, and look, I have, I think, 3 of them, so I probably got my school sitting here watching what's going on for air conditioners, but what was your thinking of giving out all these projects to just these 2 individuals?
Yes, sir. If you remember, the Lafayette Parish School Board entered into an agreement sometime while I was superintendent to air condition all of the middle and high school gyms. At that time, an RFP was issued, and there were 3 engineering firms that were selected to install all of those middle and high school gymnasium air conditioners. In discussing the urgency of this project, given that this has been on the books since 2018, the idea that we have 16 kitchens in our schools that are unair conditioned, I thought it best to go back to those engineering firms that have proven that they can complete projects on time and within budget. And so 2 of those firms are listed here to work on those 2 packages. The 3rd engineering firm was just recently assigned a school athletic field house project that valued at over $2 million. And so in my mind, because of the urgency, we want to go back to people that we are familiar with, and we get them started as quickly as possible so that when school starts in August, we should likely have these air conditioning projects near completion so that these ladies don't have to work under the conditions that they now have because there's no air conditioning.
Thank you. That's right along my lines of thinking, is exactly why I did what I did last month.
Mrs. Centani?
Dr. Aguilar, did you make the selections? Or is this coming from, did you employ our facility staff in any way on this?
I did. I spoke with Mr. Guidry and Mr. Bordelon, and ultimately Superintendent Trosclair. My understanding is that you also were instrumental in deciding whether this item was acceptable. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I agree that this is a project that certainly we want our cafeteria ladies to have air conditioning. Mr. Bordelon, along the same lines of what you just spoke about as to why these were selected, I was in on that conversation, yes.
So I'm going to vote against it, and because I vote against all the direct assignments. I certainly am not happy with the selection process we've had in place over the last number of years. This is certainly no worse than the fishbowl. At least someone's using their opinion on who should get the work. And so I'm okay with this, but this is also, in addition to the fishbowl, this is also not my preferred method of assigning work. So that's great. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Broussard?
We tried to put things in place to be as transparent as we possibly can, as far as setting the stage for as many people as we can to benefit from the tax dollars. And we can't seem to get this off the road as far as the selection process. Every time we come here, it's a different selection process. It's not what we started to do. I'm under understanding that this go to the to a certain committee to look to have some input on it, and it does not, it did not. So I can understand the urgency, but we've got to develop some sort of process to be fair to everybody.
Okay. Ms. Mason?
Can I ask a question of Kyle Bordelon? Mr. Bordelon, please. Thank you. Being that I'm one of the newer board members, when something's urgent, is there a way to speed up the process to select someone for these projects? I'm echoing what Mr. Broussard said, and what Justin has also said. Just directing and choosing people that we want to build certain projects just seems not the way we're supposed to do things in the public eye. And I'm just curious, is there a way to quickly choose a firm the right way, the old way?
The quickest way to do it is what we're doing now, and based on our knowledge of the experience of these firms, they have successfully installed air conditionings at some of the other schools, the newer schools. Both firms have been involved in some of the new construction for the new schools, and one of them for sure was involved in installing air conditioning at Prairie Elementary several years ago. So we're well aware of their capabilities, and both firms have a lot of manpower. They should be able to get this drawn up and bid out pretty quickly so we can get the work started. And then ordering the equipment might take a little while, but this is the quickest way to get it done.
I guess I'm just curious, why can't we follow the other procedure quickly rather than just assigning? How much does it delay it to go through a normal procedure?
At this point, we're still working on the other procedure, and that's one of the other agenda items further down the list.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Broussard?
I have no doubt that the engineer chosen is highly qualified. But when we leave the meeting, we go out into the streets, one of the things that we're constantly getting, well, I don't ever get a chance to bid on the project because it's already bidded out. I'm pretty sure that you hear that as well. And I know we try to do the very best that we can, all of us. And sometimes the process fails us all. But we got to try to be consistent in what we do and hoping that it'll satisfy everybody's needs.
Dr. Chaisson?
I've tried to leave this conversation alone completely and not fight anybody on it or fight anyone on this. What's the average price on these projects, Kyle? Or is there such thing as an average price? I know there are different scales and scopes on these projects, but well, scope is the same, but the scale may be bigger. What's that? What would you say is the average?
Probably about $130,000 to $150,000 per kitchen.
Okay, to 150.
And like you stated, they're all going to be somewhat different.
Okay.
That's kind of an average.
Okay. What's the what does the ADG stand for?
Associated Design Group.
Associated Design Group. Oh, and what does the M&E stand for?
Not really sure.
Does anybody know?
It might be mechanical and electrical, but I'm
Okay.
not really sure.
1, 2 increments, 3 scope of work. What's the name of the third firm that didn't get it, but they also got the other project?
You talking about for the
Yes, sir.
gym air conditioning?
Just the third firm that they mentioned that didn't get some of the work. It was only 3, but they had just gotten $2 million worth of work.
Poche Pruitt Associates?
Poche?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I won't say that this is worse than the fishbowl. I don't think so. But and I didn't want to fight anybody on it. I don't want to fight anybody on it. I know it needs to be done. I'm really being nice about it. But it's almost like you either fight them, or if you can't beat them, you join them, or if you can't beat them, then you choose them, which inevitably is fighting them. This is the topic that you and I hear quite often when it comes to, well, folks can't get any work. They can't get any work. I actually combat those folks right then and there because I asked them, well, did you submit for the work in the first place? Because for a very long time it was a fishbowl. So if you submitted, your name was in the fishbowl. Don't complain to me if you're not getting any work, if you're not even trying to apply for the work. And then I normally get silence at that point. But Mr. Broussard, there is one of your schools in there and one of my schools in there, and we can humbly request both of those schools be taken out of this mix, and then you can see fit to choose the individual mechanical engineer of your choice. But that's if you want to look at it as fighting them, or if you want to look at it as choosing who you want. So you can make the request if you want. I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I was actually going to ask your opinion.
I want my schools to be air-conditioned cafeterias like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who either one of the three to do it. My only concern is trying to be transparent in what we do and try to be consistent in what we do. I would love for them to air condition the schools starting first thing tomorrow morning.
Correct.
I don't have there might be another solution or there might be a better solution. And we always look for the better solution. And at this point, I don't know what it is, because this first came up today to do that. It wasn't discussed by anyone. It was just thrown out there. So nobody really had a chance to think about doing something else, or including somebody else, because there was never a request for services for this project. It was just given. Okay. So we don't know if John, Jim, Joe, or Jack is qualified or wants to do that. That's my issue. But yeah, I'm like you. I don't want to fight it, because it's needed, and delaying it or prolonging it would only add fuel to the fire. You know, okay. Just concerned about the process.
Okay.
Mr. Session?
I mean, if that's a real firm, that JJJ&J, we can give that to. Is that a real firm? Oh, okay.
I said Jim, John, and Jack.
Oh, okay.
No,
I thought that might have been
not a
real
real
firm.
firm.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
I thought that might have been someone you knew of.
No, it's not.
I would like to. Everybody wants the AC's, the AC situation, but at the same time, maybe just a general reminder: next time you come and you request what you want, that they'll support it if it passes, and if it doesn't, and we could just maybe call folks hypocrites. Okay, all right.
Mr. Angel?
Yes, I just want to convey to my fellow school board members, including Dr. Chaisson and Mr. Broussard, but that wouldn't be a fight for me. I mean, I have been dealing with architects and engineers, mechanical and electrical, since 1974. That's when I was first elected in Cairncrow. We built a couple of city halls. We built libraries. We bought fire trucks. We built anything you can almost imagine, and I dealt with architects, engineers, through the whole process. And I feel that if any of us feel that we have confidence in a particular architect or a particular engineer, or whether it be mechanical or electrical or any other professional, but if you know them and you know their work, I think that we should have the given the priority, or given at least a chance for us to make that recommendation for somebody doing work at our schools. Kyle knows I'm having trouble right now. I've got every kid and every student in Cairncrow High School who's handicapped cannot get to the field house. It's muddy, it's flooded. They cannot get to the field house. And those who get to the field house have to take their shoes off or put rubber boots on if they don't want to get their socks and their shoes wet. And I'd like to be able to have some input in the district that I'm representing, because I have a heartfelt responsibility in that district. And if I know someone and I have dealt with someone or some group before that have done well, I would like to be able to make that at least a recommendation to the superintendent. Thank you.
Dr. Session?
Thank you for acknowledging me, ma'am. Just 10 seconds. Tommy, I didn't fight you the first go round. I don't want to fight anybody on it. Just, I want the AC. Don't want to fight anyone on it. Just, if we can just pick and decide. It's a little strange what we're doing. It's a little odd we hadn't been called to the table yet, but at the same time, I would like to choose from my own district as well. I operate under a different set of circumstances than other board members. I would get called out and no one else would. So hopefully we won't get called out, but we'll see. I don't want to fight anybody on it. I want everybody to want what you want. You want what you want, that's fine, I support you. But respectfully, I'm gonna abstain, as I always have. And if you need my vote for it to pass, I'll go ahead and switch it to a yes. But I'm gonna abstain because I just think this is the oddest way of doing things.
Mr. Centani?
Dr. Chaisson, I want to reassure you that I'll vote no on yours as well. Okay. All right.
Okay, no further discussion. I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
5 for, 2 against, 2 abstain.
Motion carries. Okay, next item pulled is item 4.3, and the recommended action is that the board approves resolution 03211999 in recognition of National Nutrition Month for the month of March and National School Breakfast during the week of March 3rd through the 8th, 2021. Mr. Lachele?
Madam President, I move that the board approves resolution 03-21-1999 in recognition of Natural Nutrition Month for the month of March and National School Breakfast during the week of March 3rd to 8th, 2021.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Lachele and a second by Mr. Angel. Any comments from the public? Comments from the board? Mr. Lachele?
Madam President, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read resolution 03-21-1999.
Yes, sir.
National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week, whereas National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week combined has admirably served our nation for more than 40 years, and whereas all nutrition programs are dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children, and whereas food is the substance of which life is sustained and learning abilities in and out of the classroom increase substantially, and whereas the type, quality, and amount of food that individuals consume each day plays a virtual role in their overall health and physical fitness, and whereas there is a need for continuing nutrition education and a wide-scale effort to enhance eating practices, and whereas there is evidence of continued need for nutrition programs and awareness of the value of school nutrition programs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lafayette Parish School Board does hereby support the month of March as National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week, March 8th to 12th, 2021, and encourage our administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, students, and all other community members to join the campaign and become aware and concerned about their children's and their own nutritional habits in hopes of achieving a more healthful citizenry for today and the future. Signed by Irma D. Trosclair, Superintendent Treasurer, Lafayette Parish School Board.
Thank you, Mr. Lachele. I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Nine for, none against.
Okay, motion carries. Next item pull is item 4.4, and the recommended action is that the board approves the addition of 1 secretary, 1 position, 1 account clerk, 2 position, and 1 half employee services generalist position, and the elimination of 1 clerical assistant position in the insurance department. I entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move that the board approves the fiscal year 21 general fund budget revision to reflect the addition of 1 secretary, 1 position, 1 account clerk, 2 position, and 1 half employee services generalist position, and the elimination of 1 clerical assistant position in the insurance department.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Centani. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. LeBeau? Any comments from the public? Any comments from the board? Mr. Centani?
I have 2 comments just to kind of explain the motion. The only difference here is that instead of being paid out of the insurance, self-insured insurance fund, Fund 85, it would be coming out of the general fund. I believe it is $32,000 for the remainder of this fiscal year. and then they can certainly put these changes into the general fund budget that we receive at the end of the month, if necessary. Second comment I'll make, hopefully you'll take this into account, this is my personal feeling on the matter. We just increased premiums for our employees and retirees. We put them through changing the prescription program again in an effort to save money. They have, I think, done everything we've asked them to do over the last couple of years to try to keep the fiscal management of that budget. I don't think it's right that 2 months later we come back and ask them to pay for us to hire additional employees. So that's the motivation I have in offering to have the general fund pay for it rather than the insurance fund.
Mr. Lachele?
President Morrison, I'll have to agree with Mrs. Santani. The need for this department is great. It has my support, and I like the fact of using general fund instead. So I will vote to support this. That department they need the manpower.
Thank you, Mr. Lachele. Any other board member comment?
I do have one question.
Okay, Mr. Centeni?
Ms. Gardner, I assume you or Mr. Mouton could answer this. Are there anyone getting a raise out of this, or is this in any way a reorganization?
There's no one currently in the clerical spot, so that has been a vacancy, and we are converting that to a Secretary 1 position. So there's no current person receiving a raise at this time.
And that means all of these jobs would have to be advertised and go through the normal process?
The Secretary 1 position will be advertised, and the Account Clerk 2 will be advertised.
Oh, because we're taking the other half of
They
an
already have a
existing.
current person.
That's
Yes,
right.
sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, no further comment. I'll call for the vote.
Nine for, none against.
Motion carries. Next item pull is item 4.16, and the recommended action is that the board approves the proposed process for assigning small capital projects to architectural and engineering firms as attached in the public content section of this agenda item. Mr. Angel. You pulled it, yeah.
I'm sorry, Madam President. This delves into what I spoke of earlier. I think just issuing lottery to architects doesn't necessarily fit the right person for the job, and I think there should be more research done and more analysis or something more in depth to make sure that we're getting the right person to do the right job.
What do you think? What is your motion?
Yeah.
Do you want to defer?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to defer on the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to defer. I'll make a motion that we defer.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion to defer by Mr. Angel and a second by Mr. Lachele. Any comments from the public? Oh. I did good? Okay.
Well, so you can hear me. I just have following up on some of the comments from Mr. Angel, that the selection process, the procedure part of it, does not have a section for work done for LPSS, so that it's to be used to determine the eligibility of people for the $50,000 project, below 50,000 for above 50,000 projects. It's also the lottery selection doesn't address the board's desire to match projects with the firms that have experience in those projects. I think it would be a better alternative if the firms were rated according to the RFQ process on their scores, according to their scores and the projects listed according to the project budget, then the firms would be assigned in order of the two lists. The top ranked firm would get the largest project and on down the line. And if a firm did not have experience in that particular type of work, it would skip to the next one. I think it would be fair, and it would allow it would allow firms to match up with the projects, and it would allow the most qualified firms to get the better projects.
Mr. Guidry?
Yes, I just wanted to mention the projects that the large capital projects, those that are more complex in nature and cross several disciplines, where you're dealing with the architect and you're dealing with mechanical engineers, structural engineers, possibly civil engineers. RFPs or RFQs are used, individual RFP and RFQ processes are used for those projects. These projects are much simpler in scope. They typically involve one discipline, meaning it's either architectural or it's mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. And so because the complexity of these projects are limited, they're much less complex than the larger projects, we feel the projects or the experiences of the firms that are responding for these projects are such that just about any firm that's responding can do these projects. They're not complicated enough in scope to necessarily involve identifying specific architectural firms as having more expertise in these particular areas. These are not projects of significant complexity. So what that does is it allows one RFQ process instead of multiple RFQ processes to arrive basically to the same conclusions. Because to split them up, and I'm not opposed to doing it. What I would expect to see are the same firms responding. If we break it up into 4 RFQs, we're gonna have the same firms responding to all 4 RFQs. So we're ultimately gonna end up in the same place that we are with this process. However, no matter which process we choose, I mean, we'll move forward with it because we're very interested in moving these projects forward. So I just wanted to make those comments. I think breaking them into categories, we're going to get the same firms for each category, and ultimately going to bring us to the same point that this process provides for, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Lachele?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Guidry. I think the one thing I want to look at, whether it's a small project or not, is those that have not done a good job for us ought to not be involved. I still want the individuals to be qualified. I want the rubric used to reflect on past experience, not just with Lafayette Parish, but past experience, period. And to look at how much of this stuff they've actually done. If we have 5 projects, I'd love to see 15 engineers or 15 architects competing for these projects. I'd like to see the pool get bigger, the opportunities to get bigger. I think that's what Dr. Chaisson and Mr. Broussard are talking about. I'd like to see us advertise a little better. I'd like to see us really open it up. And I have some more information I'm going to give on the next one, but I don't understand how an electronic lottery differs from a fishbowl. It's still the same thing, and maybe that's the process we end up with for the smaller projects. But I don't want people to continue to be allowed into. There's got to be a threshold of points that if you fall below there, you're not getting in, because I'm not going to reward mediocre work or shoddy work. you're just not gonna live off of the Lafayette Parish school system and get your name in the bowl each and every time. So, I still think we need to look at it at least until next month, have some conversation on it, and put it back on the April agenda with a different solution. I just don't think, I think, electronic lottery and a fishbowl is still the same thing to me.
Mr. Broussard?
I was under the impression that the committee would be somewhat involved with that. I'm like Mr. Lashley. I don't want to continue to reward bad craftsmanship. I think every job should have some sort of grading system, not by me or by just me, but someone else included. And I was under the impression that the committee was involved in the selection process, so wouldn't have to go through this every meeting that we have. We go through the same question and answer, and I was in the impression that we would have somewhat of a step-by-step thing we go to in the selection process as well as a grading process, so we wouldn't have to continue with this architect and engineer every meeting we come to with no answers but just questions.
Any other board comment? If not, Ms. LeBeau?
It kills me that we have the same definition for small capital projects, but it's two separate things. So I'd like to see that divided out. I think it's a contradiction to say you can't tell us what your LPSS experience is, but then you can only have if you don't have LPSS experience, then you're precluded from participating. So that's a contradiction to me when I'm reading all of the information, because it says that if you've not provided professional services to LPSS in the last 10 years, you will only be eligible to participate in the direct assignment process, which is less than $50,000. But then again, we're not asking people to list their LPSS projects. We're excluding that from our listing. So that, I just, there's so many contradictions here. I'd really like the attorney to go through this, because I feel like we have small capital projects defined two different ways. We have, again, we're not paring down people enough to say, yeah, I think the objectiveness of the fishbowl is great, because yes, it does give you a randomness of the qualified people, but the problem is we're not still asking the right questions to get the qualified people, to pare down to those qualified people that actually need to go into the fishbowl or the lottery process, to then say these are the three really firms that actually match what we're looking for to go in there. Instead, we're saying you're an architect, you filled out your form correctly, you have all your points, we're going to stick you in the bowl. I just feel like there's like we talked about, there's just, we're not getting to the meat of, we want to have the right group. We want the right groups to be selected from when we're doing this. So I understand we can't do completely an objective criteria. There is going to be some subjectivity in any kind of application or anything we ask them to fill out. And I get that the fishbowl or the lottery process is that objective portion of it. But I still feel like you've said, we're missing the mark on what we're asking them to tell us in order to determine whether or not they're the ones that we want to be in the lottery. So I would like our attorney to look at this and maybe go through and more specifically define the steps and the qualifications and the information that we're looking for in order to make sure we have the right individuals that we're selecting from for a project. Thank you.
Dr. Aguilar?
Thank you. Board members, we were having this conversation almost a year ago when we deferred action and we directed staff to come back with a better mechanism for selecting architects and engineers, and yet we're 12, maybe 13 months down the road, and we are apparently no closer to agreeing on a process for this board to use. In the meantime, we've lost a full year of work that could have begun in the district, and we are poised to approve a second year of projects to be funded with our upcoming budget adoption. And so we have really never given Mr. Guidry any guidance about what would be acceptable to a majority of board members. And so I understand the motion to defer and the idea that we come back in March and we look at this again. I would suggest that maybe we need a meeting, a workshop, so that we can articulate to Mr. Guidry the concerns that we have about the process, because if not, we will come back and likely see some of the same proposals that we may or may not be happy with. So I'm fine with deferring, but I would like us to have an opportunity to talk freely about the process. I've got a list of things that I don't like about the particular RFQ. And so that needs to be shared with Mr. Guidry and Mr. Bourdelawn and others so that we can get a little bit closer to giving them some guidance that they so desperately need.
I can agree with you, Dr. Aguilar, but you don't abandon a fishbowl approach and then come back with an electronic fishbowl. So we have a ranking system. You know, let's rank them. Put them on paper just like we did when we did the wings. I've got it right here. Each one of you has it. I was going to bring it up on the next agenda item because that was going to be deferred also, or at least I'm going to ask Mr. Angel. He pulled it to defer it. You have a ranking right here. If there's 3 projects, you take the top 3. And to be quite honest, and you have the rubric in the back and the way they're ranked, but yet in the end, they were picked out of a fishbowl. But yet they were ranked. And I was lucky enough, the person who finished number 1 in the ranking is the one that did Ridge. Finished ahead of schedule, under budget, and did a perfect project, in my opinion. And that same firm is building my field house. And also because they have experience in field houses, but they did a great job in District 5 and ranked number 1, but yet they were still picked out of a fishbowl. So I agree with you, whether I can make a workshop or not, but I think these people ought to be ranked and chosen according to rank, and there ought to be a negative column. If you've done shoddy work within the last year, it's minus 30 points. If you've done shoddy work in the last 3 years, it's minus 20 points. You're not gonna get back in the system by not doing the right work. That's my opinion on that one.
Ms. LeBeau?
But here's my thing, we're gonna probably take a year to come up with a closeout procedure, because we don't have one of those either, which is something we asked for a year ago.
Right.
So again, I think I think we need the attorney involved on drafting these, because again, if you look at 2.16, which is what we're looking at right now, and then you go to 2.17, there are so many contradictions between small capital projects description and the RFQ and what we're reading right here in 2.16. And so I just think we have got to have somebody go through these documents and actually make sure that everything is that when we define something, that is what it is across every document. And if we have a closeout procedure, it's gotta circle back and it's gotta match what we required of them in the RFQ or what we required in the project. I mean, everything has to actually be so closely aligned and defined that we're not going to do a closeout procedure with points that don't match exactly what we were asking for, or we're giving them points that don't align with what the requirement of the job was. So I just feel like if we're actually going to make this process work, it's got to be drafted by a professional. It cannot be, we cannot put that on Kyle and some of the people that's not what their job is, and that's not, you know, what, we got to make sure it's drafted by the right people.
I agree.
Dr. Aguilar?
Oh, thank you. Kate's absolutely correct. We certainly don't have a mechanism right now to evaluate the end of project satisfaction. Mr. Lodgelaw, you talked about inviting board members to the cafeteria at Scott Middle. And when we are there, we're likely going to see a finished project. we're not going to see ceiling tiles missing. We're not going to see paint that hasn't been applied to the walls. The equipment's going to be running. The idea of evaluating satisfaction with the project is going to be a mechanism that somebody's going to have to do. And we're going to have to identify exactly what that mechanism is so that it can be factored into, well, we're not going to ask this particular engineering firm or contractor to be eligible to participate in future project assignments. So it's still, it's that missing piece that you want that we don't have. And now that we've articulated the need for that, you know, it's possible staff might come back with some ideas.
There's no further discussion. Oh, Mr. Bordelon, you had comments you wanted to share with us?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Previous boards have demanded that this be a totally objective process. I'd like to state that this is very difficult to make a totally objective process because it's very hard to come up with questions that they can answer with a number that are going to be fair to everyone. There's only so many questions you can ask, and some of those questions we asked on previous RFQs were thrown out. One example was we had a question of how many people do you have in your firm? And so naturally you're going to have larger firms and you're going to have smaller firms. That's just natural. And that's a question you can ask, that a number can be given, that you can set up a scoring matrix and you can assign points to it. But it was thrown out because we were told that it gave an unfair advantage to the larger firms because they had more people than the smaller firms. So we threw that question out. That's just one example. There are some others. The subjectivity can come in. You can ask a question, how effective was your last design on the last building? How do you answer that how do you give that an answer that can be scored? It's pretty tough because it's a subjective answer. Dr. Aguilar is correct. We do need some input from the board. Please send a list of questions to Ms. Trosclair of what kind of questions you would like to see asked, and please offer a scoring mechanism that's objective. We've tried everything we can. We've thought about it really hard. Maybe we didn't think of everything, but if there's something that you come up with, please send it in. We'll be glad to try and mix it in there.
Mr. Bordelon, I can give you a good example. How many field houses have you built? How many cafeterias have you built? How many press boxes have you built? How many tracks have you built? That's a really good starting point because you can eliminate a lot of unqualified individuals in a hurry. And that's what I did with my field house. I assigned an individual who has just completed field houses and has the contractor doing Scott Middle. How many cafeterias have they built? You see, that's a mechanism you can put in place to build. It's a specific question.
I understand that, Mr. Latchley, but
Specific.
also need to clarify something at this point because I feel there's a misunderstanding. Architects and engineers design the building or design the project and put it out for bid. They do not do the physical work of constructing that building or
Correct.
or whatever that project is. But I'm hearing a few things that are kind of blurring the line between the two. There is a distinct line between what architects and engineers do versus what the contractors do. If the contractor is late, that's on the contractor.
Correct.
It's not necessarily a problem that the architect or the engineer has created.
But if you've never built a press box and you don't build it the way it's supposed to be built, you don't draw it up the way it's supposed to be drawn, and you don't listen to the instruction, that falls on the architect. Correct? Correct. I'm correct. I'm 100% correct on that one. And I'm never going to let that go.
On your example of
And
the
that
wind
person had
additions-
never built a press box and didn't listen. So that person is gonna get negative points in my book, cause you know projects built in my district, I'm always at my schools. I see what Dr. Aguilar is talking, the work not getting done or the work getting done opposite. That's why I'm a little bit more involved and will be involved, is they need to be asked, what have you built? You know, after my press box was built, I actually found out there's an architectural firm here in Lafayette that built press boxes before. They would have probably built my press box and would have probably done what I asked and not do, and you know what I'm talking about. So that's why you're gonna see me try to get this kind of stuff in the process. You're gonna be asked, when we build a cafeteria, how many have you built? And I get it, architects are smart people, but if you've never built a cafeteria, then you don't have a very good grasp of what is involved. You see what I'm saying? And we may overspend or may not overspend. We hired an engineering firm to design and build tracks that had never built a track before. With all the tracks built in the Acadiana area, you can't tell me we couldn't have found a firm that knew what they were doing. That's my beef with the process. And just handing out projects like candy. It's gonna be tighter. It's gonna have board member input. I can promise you, if it's built in District 5, I'm putting my 2 cents in. And I may use the assignment process often for the fact of I'm gonna do my due diligence, because I am spending taxpayers' money and my constituents' money, and they wanna see it done right. So that's questions. I can send it to Ms. Trosclair, or you can just take it and write it down now. I wanna know, when we're building something, how many of these have you worked on in the past? To me, that's a smart thing. You don't
Mr.
call me up
Latchley-
and ask me to build, you're not gonna ask me to be an architect.
Mr. Bordelon, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms.
Can I
La-
call
Ms.
for the
Latchley?
vote?
Okay, you're ready. Okay. Call for the vote. Yes, this is the motion to defer. We have a motion by Mr. Tommy Angel. Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. We have a motion by Mr. Tommy Angel and a second by Mr. Brett Lachele, and is to defer this item. It's, yeah. Yeah.
Nine for, none against.
Okay, motion passes. This item is deferred. So the next item pull is item 4.17, and as the recommended action is that the board approves the proposed request for qualifications and statement of qualifications templates as attached in the public content section of this agenda item.
To defer that one too.
Second, and I will have no
Okay.
comment.
And I have a comment. do
Okay, I have a motion to defer by Mr. Angel. And I have a second by Mr. Lachele. Do we have any public comment?
Got it? Okay. Charles Beasley, and I wanted to speak to the RFQ part of the proposal. The problem is that the evaluation utilizes a completely objective selection process. It uses quantities to determine eligibility for projects. And when you use an objective criteria, you don't take into consideration the quality of the work by the firm, the experience of their personnel, or the history of successful projects for Lafayette Parish School System. To give 10 points for simply filling out the form correctly doesn't speak to quality of anyone's work. Disallowing letters of recommendation from LPSS penalizes applicants that have done most of their work in Lafayette Parish. The percentage of responsibility for the percentage of responsibility, only firms with in-house engineering are able to score very high in this item. With the exception of roofing projects, a typical architectural architect may keep 55 to 65% of the fee, and the rest will go to outside consultants. If a special consultant is added because of a special project, then that's going to decrease that amount. And those smaller firms that have outside engineering consultants are penalized for that, even though they may put together a good team to do the project. The formula for assessing current workload and capacity is almost impossible to develop. The formula used takes into consideration the firm's backlog of work and the size of the firm, but it does not take into consideration the timing of the work, which is probably the biggest factor in capacity and availability for the project that you're hiring an architect to do. In the selection process itself, well, the random selection by a computer program doesn't assure that the firm with specific experience in the project gets appointed. Projects should be categorized, and firms should list their experience in each type of project. The SOQ does not include any criteria for whether or not the work performed for LPSS has been successful. This can only be done by a subjective selection. To determine, that in itself is subjective. The SOQ does not require a list of engineering consultants to be used on the project. And of course, having a good team is a very big issue in selecting the right architect. The SOQ does not identify whether the applicant has experience in the type of projects that have been awarded, to be awarded, and allow matching of projects to the experience of the architect themselves. I took the liberty, after looking at all of this, to develop another RFQ, essentially, and process to go around it. I'd like to pass that out to you, or have someone, can I pass it out to you?
Ms. Gardner? Ms. Gardner?
What I attempted to do here was to take the concerns that I have heard from y'all, and many of them I've heard tonight, and try to address those in an RFQ process. And it includes a scoring matrix, and it includes a selection process, and it includes a new application form. The application form takes into consideration and successful projects and work for LPSS. It adds consideration for the types of projects that are broken into 4 projects. Those could be 5 or 6 if necessary. But to have a list of experience done in those projects of project types, the ones I put in here were simply roofing projects, interior renovations, exterior renovations, and athletic facilities. You could break that down more, you know, if you wanted to. But I think that's a necessary part of it. And as I said earlier, you really need to, you use this document to make a score for each firm. And those scores get ranked from highest to lowest.
Madam President, this is very, very helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this, but I would, point of order, say that this doesn't have much to do with deferring, and I think we could certainly take this up whenever we take up the remainder of this work, and whether it's in a workshop or another board meeting or a committee
Okay.
meeting or something like that.
Yes, we'll go ahead and consider the information that you've given us while we're going through the workshop and determining how we're gonna handle, the assignments. So, thank you very much. We appreciate you gathering this information for us.
All right, thank you very much.
Is there any, board comment? Mr. Broussard?
I think we, continue the conversation we had to defer the last item. To judge a project with just a naked eye is very hard to do if you don't know what you're looking at. You can't really score at times that a contractor, architect, or did a sufficient job. While we give points to how many employees do you have, how much work have you done for the Lafayette Parish School Board, it doesn't lend an opportunity for someone who has never done work for the school board and who's trying to get in the door. And so I welcome the workshop that's going to be offered by Mr. Guidry and Mr. Bordelon, because they have a very difficult job to do, to judge the projects that we have on the books, and for them to give us some direction as to what we need to do to make their job easier in the selection of these corporations, because they're the ones who are the experts, and if we should not continue to go behind them and put an X by what they have done. He knows how many times he come back for a change order, and he knows what he's looking at. They know what they're looking at when the project is being developed. But let's not close the door on those who want to come in trying to get their foot in the door to do a project for the school board. We can't give it all to the big boys. We got to try to feed the family and every part of the family. So I welcome the directions that Mr. Bordelon and Mr. Guidry give us to make their job easier.
Ms. LeBeau?
Thank you, Mr. Beasley, for all the information. And I think that gave us a lot to think about. I do want to reiterate one point that he made, which is that they do get 10 points if they correctly complete the application. If you don't correctly complete your application for the Magnet Academy lottery, you don't get to be in the lottery. So I think that 10 points is up for grabs. I think we need to really sit down with our heads and say, that's just an initial right there, 10 points, that we could find a way to look for those qualities that we keep expressing, that we want to, we want to either delineate specific projects or specific needs that we have, or ask them specific information. But there's a lot of wiggle room in the points that are currently assigned. I think we have a lot. Everybody should take the time to really go through each question and think about how we could really tailor this RFQ to get that information that we absolutely need in order to not, if this is an annual process, we don't have to go back and ask more specific questions. We have enough questions answered on the RFQ to be able to use this on an annual basis to really put the right people with the right projects. And I do know that in 4.7, we encourage minority and women-owned businesses to apply, but we don't give them any points if they are a minority or women-owned business. So just really think about if these are some of the objectives that you have, Mr. Broussard. I mean, I think that we can work with not only fleshing out experience, but also opening up projects to groups that, otherwise might not have a point or two assigned in their favor for getting into our preference. So just really want every board member to try to please go through this and be thorough and really put some thought into it. But even if we have a workshop or not, let's put thought into it now and get all the information we can to everybody ahead of time so that it'll make that workshop flow a lot more easily. Thank you.
Any other board comment? Okay, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. So we have a motion on the table to defer this item as well. We had a motion by Mr. Angel and a second by Mr. Lachele, and that's what we'll be voting on. Like that for my birthday. My birthday's coming.
8-4, none against.
Okay, motion carries. This was the last agenda item listed, so if there's no further business, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.